You're watching Kingston Now. Next, we're going to talk education, the environment, and more with New York State Senator Cecilia Tkaczyk. Welcome back to Kingston Now. It was just over a year ago that New York State Senator Cecilia Tkaczyk assumed office after a contentious race that saw numerous court challenges to the election day results. And at the end of it, you won by 18 votes, Senator. That's an amazing thing.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience, and one of those that I will never forget, and I know most people won't who were involved. It was really a grassroots campaign, and so many people got involved, and I have to say it shows that every vote counts. And people who don't think that their vote matters, this vote mattered.
Yeah, it was something like 120,000 votes cast and decided by 18 votes.
That's correct.
And you were kind of an underdog because the 46th district was redrawn. The lines were redrawn, right?
Yeah, well, this seat was added to, we used to have 62 Senate seats. This was added and clearly gerrymandered for my opponent, who was a sitting assembly member, and his assembly seat was completely inside this new district. But when I saw it, I thought, this is a district I should run in and advocate for my community, because this is, we need choices. We need to make sure that we have people going to Albany who are going to stand up for their communities and advocate for their citizens. And that's what I wanted to do. So I figured as long as I can get my message out, I have a shot. And I took a chance, and the voters put me where I am today. So I've been working really hard. It's been a great experience. I'm really honored to represent them in Albany and excited to be here.
It's a big district.
It's five counties.
Five big counties.
I consider I have 4 offices.
Right, and one here in Kingston.
Counties. We have one here in the Kingston area, right down the road from the studio. I have my Albany office, where we do the legislative work, and I have a satellite office in Amsterdam, in Montgomery County. My 4th office is my car. And
yeah, you're spending a lot of time in it, right?
I've been going around the district a lot. Even after session was over, we looked at my schedule. I'd been to like over 600 events in a short period of time. So I'm getting out there, meeting folks, and working hard to make sure that I'm understanding their issues and bringing their concerns to Albany.
Now, your background is not politics. You are a farmer. You have a family farm still, in fact, right?
Yes, I grew up on a dairy farm. Very proud of my agricultural roots. And my husband and my son and I have a small sheep farm today. We have about 30 sheep, and so we still are in farming. And so I consider myself to be a farmer, and I'm the only farmer in the Senate. And I try to make sure that my colleagues in the Senate understand the issues of farmers. I've had several tours with my colleagues in Ulster County and Montgomery County just to visit local farms. And recently we took a trip to New York City and brought some farmers from the district down there just to talk to folks about how do we connect farmers with consumers, and what are the hurdles to get their products to market, and how do we help overcome some of those hurdles. So it's an area I'm really excited to help get involved with and support.
And in addition to the farm, you were a member of the school board, which
Yes.
was really your experience in public service before becoming a member of the New York State Senate, right?
That's correct. I sat for 5.5 years on my local school board and watched us being forced to make decisions that frankly did not make sense to the kids in the classroom or the property owners that were supporting our school. And I decided, it's one of the things that pushed me to run for the Senate, because I didn't think the decisions that were being made in Albany reflected what was reality in my rural community. And we saw cut after cut, forcing us to cut into our programs, because when you rely more on state aid, as rural schools and small city schools do, and you cut that state aid significantly, which has happened, you're putting our schools in a financial hole. We're still digging out of that hole. And it's been very frustrating to see what's been happening to our educational system.
Yeah, and at this point, it's a good time to segue into, a few weeks ago, the governor did the State of the State address, and you issued a statement that was in support of the things that he made priorities, like property tax relief, education, and upstate economy. And then he went and announced his budget, and the education budget didn't seem to meet your standards.
No, did not meet our expectations.
And not just yours. A lot of people are upset about it. Yeah.
Yes, as I mentioned, our schools are in a financial hole, and we rely so much on local property taxes. To me, we all want to lower property taxes. We all want a really strong educational system. How do we make sure the schools have the resources without overburdening local property owners? State aid is key to that equation. And because we've been cutting so much in education, we can't make up the difference with local property taxes. So I was looking for a number that would help the schools start to get out of their financial hole. The Board of Regents recommended $1.3 billion for operating support for K through 12 schools. The governor's proposal was $500 million less than that. That's not enough. That's not acceptable. To me, that will result in more cuts in the classroom and an inability to lift the burden from local property owners. To me, you can't resolve local property tax burdens without increasing across the board the state aid support so that we have less pressure on local property owners.
So that's the opening salvo, is his intended agenda, his intended budget. What will happen now? How much wrestling will go on behind the scenes to try and get that number up to where it needs to be?
Well, this will be a three-way negotiations. The Senate and the Assembly have to pass his budget, and we have until the end of March to do that. So there will be negotiations around this. I certainly encourage the public, now that his budget is out, to weigh in with their legislators. And there will be, discussions around how do we meet our obligations and provide some tax relief to residents. I think there are good things in the budget, like reducing corporate tax and reducing taxes on manufacturing companies that move into upstate areas. Those are all things that will help spur local job growth, and those are things that I found positive. But one of the biggest contentious issues will be what are we doing in education? And not only with the budget, but with the Common Core implementation. There's been, as you know, a lot of upset parents and teachers and school board members complaining about what's happening with the rollout. And
well, let's talk about it. We'll take a quick break, because that is such a contentious issue in education these days, is the Common. You're watching Kingston Now, and we're joined again by New York State Senator Cecilia Tkaczyk. So Common Core, it has people frothing at the mouth. As succinctly as you can, what is Common Core?
Common Core is a set of standards that have been identified as new goals, essentially, for our kids to reach. So it's brought more rigor in the classroom. I'll give you one example. In the past, kindergartners had to learn how to count from 1 to 20. Now the standard is you're going to count to 100, you're going to be able to count by 10. So it's giving you more standards that are higher, essentially. And we want to see more progress towards those standards. But the implementation of the Common Core standards have been fraught with delays. And basically, I think that the schools have told us they have not had the time and the resources to effectively implement the Common Core. What I'm hearing from most of the educators out there is we don't have a problem when you want to change the standards. The problem is you're not giving us the time and the tools to help our kids who are in the classroom today start moving in the direction of those new standards. And we want to raise standards, but we also have to make sure we have the tools in the toolbox to help our schools and help our kids get there. And people are very angry because, as we talked earlier, we've been seeing multiple years of cuts to our schools in our educational programs, and at the same time now we're putting on them huge unfunded mandates. And we've given them more work, higher expectations, And we're essentially changing how we're teaching kids, what we're teaching, how we're measuring the children's progress, and how we're evaluating our teachers in meeting these new standards and being effective all at the same time. And it makes your head spin. So it's like, what are you doing? And the frustration is real. It's been going on for a long time, and it's building. We had a meeting with the commissioner yesterday at the Senate Education Committee, and we're pretty much grilling him about how unhappy we are, because initially teachers, schools would tell the education department, it's not working well, we need some changes. That wasn't heard, so of course they're going to come to their legislators, and it's been a crescendo. I've just been amazed at the overall concern that we need to make sure we're moving in the right direction. And I think the message we sent to the commissioner yesterday, you need to slow down and make sure you're making some changes so that this can be done effectively. If you don't do it, the legislature will. You don't want us to. That's pretty much the message.
Yeah, and it seems like so many people are opposed to it that hopefully a slowdown in that rollout is inevitable. Well, so we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. Some other things that has been probably, as I read the newspapers, seems to be the biggest, most out-front issue that you've had to deal with in the year that you've been in the Assembly.
Yes, and one of the things that we still need to work on, I think, is how do children with special needs, how are they impacted by this change in standards? And we're having a public forum in Albany in a couple weeks just to talk about the impact of the Common Core implementation with children with special needs. So it's still something we're going to be talking about and looking at this entire session, because we feel the frustration and we know changes have to be made.
Some of the other things that you've done in your year is you've spearheaded a move, an effort to move the primary dates from September to June, is it?
Yes, I am ranker on elections committee, and one of the things that we can do as government is to reduce the costs to local municipalities. Instead of just complaining that they're spending too much, there's things we can do to actually reduce the cost. Moving the primary date, the local date, to the end of June makes a lot of sense. Right now we have two primary dates, one for the federal congressional races in June, another one in September for the state and local races. It doesn't make sense to have two dates for the voters to go out and vote, 2 times for people to collect petition signatures to get folks on the ballot, and it costs money. To me, we have more voters voting, saves the taxpayer dollars, and if we move it to June, we will be in compliance with the MOVE Act, which says that we have to have the primary date early enough so that we can collect ballots from people serving overseas in the military. So what we have right now is we're wasting taxpayer dollars. It's an unfunded mandate. We're not even doing it right because we're not getting the military ballots back in time. So to me, this is a no-brainer. We save money when we do this, to the tune of about $50 million for every 2-year cycle we would be saving the counties. So I'm pushing that we do this because these are the types of things we can do. The holdup is the politicians think it's inconvenient. It's passed the Assembly already. It was one of the first bills they passed last week. The Senate Democratic Conference is on board. It's the Republican Conference that's holding this up. So I think it's something that the voters should know about and weigh in on.
That's it for this week's show. Thanks to Dr. Keith Stredler of Marist College, and again to New York State Senator Cecilia Tkaczyk. To find out more about her policies, go to her New York State Senate website. Remember, all of our previous shows are available on our YouTube channel, and you can find that link on our Facebook page. I'm Jimmy Buff for Kingston Now. We'll see you next time.